You're on Legal AF, the podcast. Sure, it's got to be that. Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, Michael Popok on a Wednesday. What else would it be? We got a lot to talk about. Firstly, we've got a Trump trial. Yes, this is not an old episode. We've got a Trump trial going on in San Francisco in front of a judge named Breyer. Sounds like it's an old episode. This time, Charles Breyer presiding over a 3-day trial about whether Donald Trump and the Trump administration violated the Posse Comitatus Act. God, I never thought I'd have to talk about that, but we do. And that would be violated if a judge finds that the Trump administration has used the U.S. military, that awesome power of the U.S. military on domestic soil, for civilian domestic law enforcement. And that happened in California. And it's not just California where it matters. It matters in every blue state and every blue municipality, from D.C. To California, and all, you know, from the Hudson to the Pacific and everything in between. And that's why it's literally the case of Governor Gavin Newsom versus Trump in that case. And we'll talk about it more with Karen Friedman Agnifilo. We just finished day 2. Day 3 is tomorrow. And or actually, they just finished day 3 today. Sorry, so we'll be able to give you the update related to that. Then there's a lot of update and confusion in the Epstein world. Did Ghislaine Maxwell just get work release? Is she going to be working at a Starbucks near you, hunting for her next prey, having been convicted of being a child sex offender and child sex trafficker? Well, Allison Gill, Mueller, she wrote, just did some reporting, and I think there was a denial by Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer, David Oscar Marcus. The fact that we're even talking about a convicted child sex trafficker who Donald Trump wants to vouch for his character, I think it says all you need to hear. And the fact that we're even talking about the fact that she might be able to get a work release. And the fact that she was sent to a minimum security prison filled with other women and young women. Probably not a good thing, not the right thing under the Bureau of Prisons, but we'll talk more about that. And then, no rock left unturned by MAGA. They are going to keep testing whether they've got the numbers at the United States Supreme Court to do really immoral and underhanded things. In this case, overturning a long-standing precedent that established the right to same-sex marriage. And I'm going to have actually tomorrow, I think we'll post it the following day, Robbie Kaplan, the lawyer for Jean Carroll, who, when she was at a big firm doing pro bono work, argued a lead case in the Defense of Marriage Act that led into the same-sex marriage ruling by the United States Supreme Court. And she'll have some great things to talk about, but we'll break down the issue here, Karen and me. And then we do, speaking of Robbie Kaplan, Jean Carroll just got another win at the Second Circuit Court of Appeal about her sexual abuse and defamation and punitive damage case against Donald Trump. And we'll talk about what happens next there. Let's bring on Karen with much. Or do we have the balloon drop? It's Karen's birthday tonight.
Yes, it is.
Let's leave it. Let's watch all the comments. I don't think I've ever had my birthday fall on a Wednesday. You lucky, lucky person. What are you going to do for it?
I'm going to go out to dinner with my husband. I'm very excited.
Should be.
Yeah.
Should be. Are the kids in town?
I'm just going to be with my husband,
Date night.
Date night. That's what I want to do. So,
thank you, producer.
Thank you for the balloon.
Thank you. We should end now. This is the highlight of the entire show.
So great.
We should. This is the end of it. Happy birthday to KFA.
But the other thing I wanted to do was legal AF with you. You even said, "Do you want to pass? It's your birthday." I said, "No way. I want to be with this community, these amazing people." That's what I want to do.
I did give you the out.
You did.
I said, "You really want to do this tonight with us?" So, and that just shows you her commitment to everything that we do here. So let's dive in. There's no segue off of a happy birthday. Congratulations to you. Certainly not the Posse Comitatus Act.
I will say it's not a big birthday yet. That's all I'll say.
Okay. I thought you were going to say something like, well, the Posse Comitatus Act is older than me.
That's true.
That's also true. It's also from the 1800s.
But thanks to OneSkin and all their amazing products, I look much better and younger.
I wonder if they're a sponsor today. Well, they are now. We're gonna tell Jordy.
It's true, though. It's true.
Jordy's gonna go collect. So I've been doing a lot of reporting on it, and so let me just see if I can do the shorthand, then turn it over to you for the color commentary. Judge Breyer brother of retired Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. He's senior status himself. And he issued a preliminary injunction against Trump administration after the takeover of California and its National Guard by Trump. And he ruled that it was unconstitutional, that it violated the 10th Amendment, which reserves to the states powers that's not given to the federal government, and that his attempt under a unique statute to federalize and commandeer the National Guard of California was an abuse of power. Goes up on it, but he doesn't touch the Posse Comitatus argument, which was another secondary argument or another argument of the state of California. I just had, by the way, Rob Bonta, the Attorney General for California, on. He's up right now on Legal AF YouTube channel with an amazing interview, not to be missed. In fact, it was so amazing, I led the video with a talking point or a sound bite from General Bonta. I think you'll like it a lot about this case. So they bring Posse Comitatus, arguing that ever since our Reconstruction period, Civil War, post-Civil War, in order to get the Confederacy to feel comfortable and to cut a deal about a presidential election, boy, that sounds familiar, they passed this act, which basically assured the South that Union soldiers or the federal troops would not be in their states enforcing local law or take over domestic disturbances. And that's the law. That's what we've been doing. Now, it does say that a violation of it is a crime, although this is not a criminal case in San Francisco, and subject to fines. Doesn't really talk about injunctions. We'll touch on that in a minute. Judge doesn't rule on that. That's not what goes to the appellate court, because the appellate court in a 3-judge panel, 1 Trumper, 1 Bush, 1 Biden, rule against the judge on the injunction about the takeover of the National Guard. But they don't address, because it wasn't addressed by the trial court below, the Posse Comitatus issue. And way back when we put a placeholder, we said, and the judge is going to hold a trial in August about the Posse Comitatus. And we're here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. He's held a trial. So let me turn it over to you, Karen, about what you picked up and learned about the trial, and how do you think this is going to turn out for the Trump side?
I don't think the Trump administration is going to be able to show that it was necessary under the Posse Comitatus Act to be able to invoke the military and use the military for local domestic law enforcement. You have to show an insurrection. You have to show all sorts of things that absolutely did not exist in California when this was done. And it was sort of this manufactured situation that Trump said required this, but I don't think he's going to meet his burden, and I think he's going to lose bigly, as he says, in California. That's what I think. And it's just, we're talking generally about military being used and National Guard being used in local law enforcement for local law enforcement purposes. And DC is in it, which we're going to talk about next, is in a very different position than California, because DC is not a state. But I just want to make a general point, which is, other than the fact that people in the military and people in local law enforcement carry weapons and carry guns, there's almost no similarity between the two jobs. To become a local law enforcement officer, the amount of specialized training that goes into it, I have so much respect for both, actually, for the military and for local law enforcement beyond. I mean, my father was a police officer in Los Angeles and served in the military, and I've always just had the most tremendous respect for people who serve in both, but there's virtually no similarities between the two roles. And the training is so different. And to be a local law enforcement officer and to enforce the local laws, it's so dependent on being a part of the community, knowing the community, and being trained to do things like de-escalate. And local law enforcement, only a very small percentage of what they do is enforcing laws or making arrests, I should say. Local law enforcement, they do things like when you call 911, if somebody passed away of natural causes in New York, the police will sit with you until the coroner comes, so you don't have to be alone with the person, your loved one who just passed. Or crowd control, if you're having a parade, they will help control the crowds. Or If there's, a swarm of bees that have taken over a hydrant, the local police officers come, and there's a beekeeper that works for them, and they help move the bees. I mean, these are all like examples of they do help with search and rescue. They help, they help crowd control if there's a fire. They show up when there's an emergency, like EMT is called. I mean, there's so many things that they do, and making arrests is maybe 10% of what they do. And so, and the military is a completely other thing, right? What they're trained to do, it's totally different, right? They're trained to engage in war. And so just federalizing all these local places, it's such a different thing. And I worry a little bit about the military or federal law enforcement. Again, FBI, you're going to bring FBI in. They don't patrol. That's not what they do. They do long-term investigations that then sometimes end up in arrest, but they don't do that kind of uniform patrol on the street function, which again is just very, very different. So it's a big deal what Trump is trying to do. It reminds me of The Handmaid's Tale, where you can't even drive around without these long military checkpoints, everybody in uniform with guns. We're not there yet, but let me tell you, it's a little scary what he's trying to do by bringing these federal forces into local law enforcement. So I think California is right to fight this, and I think they're going to win.
Yeah, and look what happened with Trump. He wants to distract from the fact that there is a trial going on against his administration for violations of the Posse Comitatus Act. So that's why that, and the fact that he's got a teacher's pet named Big Balls, that's why he tries to take over the DC National Guard or DC Police Department at the exact same time as day one of the trial with a group of people up there. It's just a distractor from Epstein and the Epstein scandal and his role in the cover up and the crimes related to it, and the bad press about Ghislaine Maxwell and JD Vance's failure to try to tamp down the Epstein story on the weekend on the Sunday morning news shows, making it worse. So he pulls together this phony press conference about strong man Trump. Every time I talk about Trump, it's devolved into caveman. Me, Trump. Me have big club. Me going to fix problem in DC, which has worse crime rate than Mexico City. Wrong.
I like your Russian Trump accent.
I don't know what it is. It's like caveman Russian. It's wrong. It's not worse. It's 30% down over the year. This is just a facade because your pet Big Balls that used to work for Elon Musk and is now rummaging around our Social Security records got jumped by a bunch of 15-year-olds. Lord knows what he was doing. I'm not saying he invited the attack, but I mean, listen, I'll just leave it at that. So Big Balls gets jumped, and now we've got to federalize the DC Police Department. I mean, like, DC's already federal. It's a federal district. Yes, the president has the right to do a lot of things there, but he can't take it on the road and do it in New York. But he does it right at the moment of this trial. In fact, evidence, we had Adam Klasfeld just joined us on Legal AF to be a contributor, and he's in the courtroom watching this trial on Zoom. And he said, it came in, the evidence, like they said, well, you're seeking an injunction. That means, California, you need to show that there's a chance that this is going to happen again. And they said, look at DC. There's a press conference going on right now. So that kind of wafted its way right in real time, as it often does in Donald Trump cases, to become evidence against him. But that whole, I was reading a New York magazine article today that came in, and it reminded me of, it was a whole section about Donald Trump from childhood, where he was a bully that used to, pull pigtails and attack little girls. His father had to send him off to military academy where it got worse. Then he gets under the tutelage of Roy Cohn, the lawyer, the pugnacious lawyer. And Roy taught him, you never apologize, you never defend, you only attack. And that's always been Donald Trump, always attack. And then, of course, the interview with the reporter, Bob Woodward, in which he said, power, this is Trump to Woodward, power is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's about fear. It's about creating fear. That's all we're watching with Donald Trump. And we can't allow him to make us fearful. That's why there's over 400 cases that have been filed in federal courts around this country. And by and large, 90% of them have been successful, including injunctions. That's why they matter. And we're also batting about 90% at appellate courts. Sure, there's a stray appellate court here and there that makes a ruling like today. Oh, we can do this to the US 8 or do that. But by and large, we are winning in the federal courts at the lower level. There's cases that then drift up to the United States Supreme Court, 8 or 10 or 12 of them, and they are important. But main justice in this country gets done at the trial court level and at the first level appeal court level. And there's plenty of examples of Trump, for instance, chickening out, folding, taco moments, walking away from cases, releasing funds. See, they don't get the press that these other ones do. But when you talk to the newsmakers who are in the courtroom, like we do on Legal AF, you know, Democracy Forward has a playlist on Legal AF YouTube channel where Skye Perryman comes on with me once a week and talks about her 80 cases that they are now handling and all the success that they're having. There's even cases where Donald Trump hasn't even bothered appealing. You know, so people are like, we always lose because it goes to the Supreme Court. Not so fast. And that's not what the attorneys general, the 23 Democratic attorneys general, will tell you about their success record so far this term. And not with the public interest groups like Democracy Forward and the ACLU. And I'll just leave it on this, Karen. Rob Bonta, the Attorney General for California. By the way, keep an eye on that person. I mean, this is not his last stop as Attorney General. I don't know if it's governor of the state of California. I don't know if it's running for president one day. Quite an impressive fellow. He was a vice mayor. He was a representative in California. He worked as a district attorney, then attorney general. I mean, watch this guy's career. Quite fascinating, quite amazing. And why did I bring up Rob Bonta? Oh, we talked about all the cases that they filed because Rob Bonta said Trump may have learned in his first term and while he had a shadow government waiting to get reelected or elected, he might have learned. But we learned also the lessons the first time around, and we are ready, all gas, no brake. And I love hearing that. And I think our audience will take quite a lot of comfort from hearing about the attorneys general, the Letitia Jameses and the Rob Bontas of the world, and the other 21 of them, along with the ACLUs and the Democracy Forwards, and what they're doing every day as the firewall between Donald Trump and the American people.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I also agree with you that the takeover of DC, of the DC Police Department that he's doing is a little smoke and mirrors, because I think he sees the writing on the wall that he's going to lose in California. And DC is slightly different. As you said, it's already federal, and there's a statute that actually allows him to take over and federalize the metropolitan police, the police force in DC, if there's an emergency. Now, he's manufactured this emergency, and frankly, I think is way overstating and lying about what the actual crime numbers are in DC. And of course, there is some violent crime and there are some problematic areas, but there's no reason to think that local law enforcement there can't handle it on their own. In fact, they've been handling it, and crime has continued to go down, violent crime, year after year, the last 2 years in particular. And this is from these are Department of Justice statistics. This is Trump administration's own statistics show that crime is down. But he manufactures this emergency, which then triggers the statute that allows him to place the DC Police Department under his control and deploy the National Guard in the city. So, declaring this emergency in the District of Columbia, because, as you said, big balls got jumped, I think it wouldn't pass muster. But I do think it's a loser in court, unlike the California case, because of this DC code. I think it's 1-207-40, which basically says emergency control of the police by the president when special conditions of an emergency nature exists. They can direct the mayor to turn over control for 48 hours and then again for 30 days. After 30 days, they need congressional permission. That's a lower bar or lower standard than the Posse Comitatus Act that is required in every other state for this to happen. So I think that's one of the reasons he did it timing wise, was so that he can get a win or have this happen and not be, because I think he knows he's going to lose in California. So that's what I think.
Very, very, very good observation as usual. And we're going to talk about more observations here on Legal AF. We're going to talk about the Epstein developments. There's been so many of them since the last time you and I got together. The Defense of Marriage Act and same-sex marriage now is the next thing on this immoral checklist by MAGA. But we need to cover it. And then Jean Carroll had a win, and that's a win for justice and for democracy. And I'll have Robbie Kaplan's going to be interviewing with me tomorrow, and we're going to talk about both Jean Carroll, her win, because she represents Jean, and this new attempt to overturn same-sex marriage in America. It's just such a vindictive group of people that are running our government right now, and we just have to cling together, be joined at the hip, and we shall overcome the Trump administration. I mean, that's the best that I can put it. And it starts with telling truth to each other. Mark Maron, the comic social observer, had a good line in his recent special. He said, normally it's speaking truth to power, but for Donald Trump, it's speaking power to truth. And that's what we're watching with total revision of American history at the Smithsonian Institute, rewriting the entire impeachment exhibit at the Smithsonian to write out literally Donald Trump, the only two-time impeached president ever. I mean, it's just disgusting things that are going on in Washington for Donald Trump to leave his mark. And I think it just shows you how important it is to support what we do here on the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF. People ask, how do you keep the lights on? How do you pay the bills? Because it's not just Karen and me. It's Karen and me and an entire group that works behind the scenes. It's a lean team, but it's an entire group behind the scenes that works on the videos and on the hot takes and on the lives and on the podcasts. And there's a lot going on. And then the Legal AF YouTube channel, we've got a team there that does the editing and the producing and the content making and, buys the microphones and things that we need to do the show. And how does that get done? It's very, very easy. We don't have a paywall. If you want to make contributions, you make contributions, but there's no paywall for our content. Either here on the Midas Touch Network, hit the subscribe button, come over to Legal AF, the YouTube channel, do the exact same thing. Just that's the receipt we need to show us that you like the content that we're curating on the Legal AF YouTube channel. I got a dozen contributors that do work over there with me. Adam Klasfeld just joined from All Rise News. We got our resident historians, Sidney Blumenthal and Sean Wallentz, amazing interviews that they bring on as a group, and others, which I don't want to bore everybody with the details. Come over to Legal AF, the YouTube channel. You'll see the playlists and all the podcasts that are there. And all we ask for is you take a finger and hit the subscribe button. That's really it. Legal AF has a Substack. And the way to support that, sure, paid subscription is great. It does help pay the bills for people that are involved in this. But if you just want to start it off with a free subscription, you'll get a lot of the content that's very, very interesting, including the filings and the orders and things coming right out of the courtrooms. You don't have to rely on Karen and me or Ben telling you about what the 38-page order says. You can read it for yourself as well. And so that's on Legal AF Substack. And then we've got sponsors. That's another part of the ecosystem that keeps the lights on, keeps the printing press running. And we've got some amazing sponsors. Some of them have been with us for 5 years. Some of them are brand new, but all have been vetted and curated by Jordy Mysalis and the brothers. And then we look at them and we try them out. We go, we like these. And we pass on some that we don't like. And these are the ones that are very supportive of what we do. And just to make a point, because sometimes it comes up in the chat, Google ads, ads by YouTube, we have no control over. So if they're placed there, someone's like, Popok, the meme coin for Trump and his gold watch is being sold on one of your videos. I have no control over this at all. However, the ads that we actually run during a show, that we have complete control over, and they don't have any control over our content at all. They don't know what we're going to say. Karen doesn't. We don't know what we're going to say to each other. All right. I just have a list like that. There we go. And that's it. And if they don't like it, they don't have to sponsor us. And the first day that a sponsor tells Karen or me or Ben what to say or what not to say is the last day we're going to have that sponsor or I'm going to be on the network. So don't worry about any of that. But if you got disposable income, That's shrinking. I get it in this economy. But these are some great products and some great sponsors. And now a word from them. You guys know I love my late night snacks, but not the sugar crash after. That's why I'm obsessed with Magic Spoon. It's the cereal and treats you remember from your childhood, reinvented. Each serving of their high-protein cereal has a wild 13 grams of protein, 0 sugar, and only 4 grams of net carbs. Perfect if you're carb-conscious or living that low-carb lifestyle. And the flavor straight out of the Saturday morning cartoons. Fruity, cocoa, frosted, nostalgic, fueling, and totally satisfying. Now let's talk about their treats. They're crispy, crunchy, and packed with 12 grams of protein. I toss them in my gym bag, my glove box, even my nightstand. With flavors like marshmallow, chocolate peanut butter, and dark chocolate, you really can't go wrong. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/legalaf or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/legalaf for $5 off. So I went to my 40th high school reunion recently, and while many of my classmates were excited about retiring or have retired, well, I brought my infant daughter to the reunion and I won the youngest child contest hands down. But that means that when most people's working is winding down to match their body's energy levels, I need to ramp up to keep up with my baby daughter. I believe one of the best aging breakthroughs of the last decade is Qualia Senolytic, and here's why. Qualia Senolytic is at the frontier of what is currently possible in the science of human aging. Senolytics are a science field revolutionizing human aging. A big culprit behind that middle-aged feeling can be senescent cells, aka zombie cells that linger in your body after their useful function, wasting your energy and resources. Let me break it down. The accumulation of zombie cells can lead to less energy, slower workout recovery, joint discomfort, and basically, well, feeling old. Qualia Senolytic is a groundbreaking, clinically tested supplement with 9 vegan plant-derived compounds that help your body naturally eliminate senescent cells, helping you feel years younger in just months. Here's how it works. You take it just 2 days a month, helping your body naturally eliminate zombie cells to age better at the cellular level. And Qualia's breakthrough formulation is vegan, non-GMO, and tested by leading scientists. Since taking Qualia Senolytic, I felt like I've turned back the clock. I got higher energy, less soreness after exercise, and a big boost in productivity. It's made me feel more youthful and energized as I have the energy level to nurture my baby daughter the right way. Experience the science of feeling younger. Go to qualialife.com/legalaf for up to 50% off your purchase and use code legalaf for an additional 15%. That's qualialife.com/legalaf for an extra 15% off your purchase. Your older self will thank you. And thanks to Qualia for sponsoring this episode. Welcome back, and thank you to our sponsors. And as I said, keeps the lights on. Let's talk about what's going on with the Epstein case. Karen, let me turn it over to you. We've got some new reporting that from Allison Gill, Mueller, she wrote, which she's standing by, that says that Ghislaine Maxwell is eligible for work release. She's got out, checked off next to her name on the Bureau of Prisons now that she's been reassigned to a minimum security prison camp in Texas. And why don't you catch the audience up on that, brief them on that, and then, of course, the other, I can pick up with, J.D. Vance going on Sunday News trying to blame the Biden administration for not releasing the files, and we're still at the files have not been released. And then we've got Paul Engelmeyer, a federal judge in New York, who issued a ruling about grand jury secrecy transcripts, but went even further in excoriating the Trump administration and vindicating the rights of the victims. So we'll tie all that together in this segment. You want to kick it off?
Sure. So Ghislaine Maxwell is, as you know, she went to trial in her case after Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide a month after he was arrested. And she went to trial. She was convicted of most of the charges of both facilitating sexual activity with minors as well as participating in them herself. So she was resoundingly convicted and sentenced to 20 years. And there are different places she could serve that time. And she was in a higher level security facility. And as a result of talking to the Trump administration, she suddenly is now transferred to a minimum security camp. And when you get to go to a place like that, there's a lot you get to do there. First of all, that they call it a camp for a reason. It's it's minimum security, a lot of freedom, a lot you can do. And one of the things that you get to be, it's kind of ironic that Jared Kushner in Trump 1 was instrumental in a lot of these prison reforms and sentencing reforms, things like the First Step Act, et cetera, that allows people who have served a certain amount of time to have time reduced off their sentence or to get to do things like work release. And that it seems to be where she's headed. And it's one of the reasons, I'm sure, why she was given this cushy role to go to minimum security now, so that she can avail herself of all of these things and start the process of getting out, frankly. So I think that's where she is and what's happening. I don't know, maybe the Trump administration decided that a full pardon is a little too distasteful. And it's just interesting because through all of this, although I followed Epstein and Maxwell at the time when this was all going on, now that this is all happening, I'm sort of refreshing my memory on all of what happened and came out in her trial. And thankfully, Judge Engelmeyer, who's the judge who in the Southern District who denied this request from the Trump administration to release the grand jury minutes, he denied it in a 30-plus page decision. This could have just been a one-page decision or a two-page decision, or just a denied. I mean, because it doesn't meet the legal standard even close. But he took the time to really remind everybody of the treasure trove of information, the amount of stuff that the Trump administration possesses and doesn't need the permission of the judge to release. What he basically said in this decision was, look, there was a trial. Ghislaine Maxwell had a trial, and lots of evidence came out in that trial, and nothing in this grand jury testimony amplifies upon that. The grand jury is a bare bones probable cause standard, just enough to charge someone with a crime. And then you have a trial where you have full evidence and cross-examination, et cetera. This grand jury presentation was two different witnesses who testified, and neither of them, they were summary witnesses. So they just summarized the evidence. Neither of them testified at the trial. And there was nothing in there that illuminated anything. There was nothing new or anything in there special that didn't come out at the trial. So he basically said, look, I'm denying it because you didn't meet the standard, but I'm not, there's nothing in there. And he previewed that for everybody. There's literally nothing in there, but there is a lot of stuff that came out at the trial and is part of the investigation that the FBI and the Department of Justice has when they investigated and prosecuted these cases. Right? They executed search warrants. They recovered a notebook, flight logs, all that kind of stuff. I was reading a CNN article that talks about just the connection and how close. I don't know that people realize how close Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump were. They called themselves best friends. They were the best of friends, the closest friends. He'd been on the plane. His children, when they were little, and their nannies went on his plane. It's all in the flight logs, and they put it in chronological order. And it's worth looking at because it's just they were shockingly close. They weren't just acquaintances who knew each other at parties. These were people who spent a lot of time together, flew on each other's airplanes a lot together, and literally called each other best friends. And there was at one point, Trump admitted that he knew that Jeffrey Epstein likes him young. I mean, it's not a far stretch given the amount of women who have come forward and accused Donald Trump of forcibly, whether it's raping them or kissing them or touching them. There are so many women who have come forward to say that that's what happened. And that's what his friend Jeffrey Epstein did as well. And so it's not a huge stretch. And when you think about it and you see how close they were. And I think it's time for the Justice Department and the FBI to turn over the records that they have in their possession that does not require the court or anybody else to release the way these grand jury minutes that show nothing. This is just, they just want to be able to say, oh, we were going to turn them over, but the judge said no. The judge said no. There's nothing there. It's literally giving ice in winter. There's nothing in those minutes. And there never was going to be anything in those minutes. I've never seen grand jury minutes that are substantive, federal grand jury minutes that are substantive. That's not how they do it. They do it exactly this way for a reason. So that's where we are. And, with all of this, sorry, yeah, I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I get so upset when I get so this topic really bothers me.
The podcast is a tangent. I mean, we said that.
I know, but I
Ben, when he and I talk about when we do Saturday Sunday, he's like, we'll be talking about, all right, I'll do this part, and then you do a Popok rant or a Ben rant. I'm like, the rant, that's the juice, that's the podcast.
Yes.
The rant part. So yeah, Engelmeyer. I'll just touch on that part. Judge Engelmeyer issued a 35-page plus decision. What I liked about it, in a way that Judge Rosenberg in West Palm Beach, when she was dealing with her grand jury transcript, no, I'm not going to release the transcript issue. She just did like a 5-pager, like, well, Rule 6E of the Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure, Rule of Secrecy, you haven't given me proper grounds, so no. That's not what Engelmeyer did. What Engelmeyer had said is, I'm going to set the record straight. First part of my order is going to be reminding people how of the crimes that Ghislaine Maxwell committed. The 6 or 7 that she was indicted for, the 5 that she was convicted of, her participation in sexual abuse of girls and women, the victims that testified, because he's seeing, as we all are, an attempt to rehabilitate Ghislaine Maxwell by her lawyer, by Donald Trump, by the right-wing MAGA, by MAGA media, and the rest, because they have to do that because Donald Trump wants to exonerate her. And so they have to have it be muddied in the people's mind that maybe she's the victim too. And the judge says, all right, this is my paraphrase. Let's set the record straight. She's not a saint. She's a convicted sinner. And these are her sins. He didn't have to do that. But he did that, I think, in honor of the 1,000 or more victims of hers, including those that had the courage to testify against her. And there were about 6 of them. That was the first section. Second section was what I referred to as release the damn files. The judge saying, okay, I know you've tried to divert attention and sent it over to federal judges because you're trying to redefine what the Epstein files are, but we don't have the Epstein files. What we have, and we're not sitting on them, are a very scant 1-day transcript, nothing of which, and he said, I looked at it, I'm not going to tell you what's in it, but I will tell you in general, all of it has been reported. None of it is new. And then he went off to say the mine load, or what I call the mother load of documents that comprise the Epstein files, are sitting with the Trump administration. And he says point blank, by quoting Pam Bondi's February memo, Pam Bondi's February announcement, the press conference, the letter to the Department of Justice, to the FBI, I have all the files on my desk, the revelation by the Department of Justice that there were 300 gigabytes of information which comprise the Epstein files. And he laid that all out to say to the public and to the Trump administration, your attempt to blame federal judges for not releasing the Epstein files is a charade. You're sitting on the Epstein files. We aren't. He says, I looked in the files, and anybody, if I could allow you to look at them, and I can't because of the rule of secrecy around grand jury materials, you and all the people that you say justify releasing the files, the pundits, the press, the media, the public, would all be bitterly disappointed because there's no there, his words. And it called out the Trump administration and reset the battlefield to remind everybody, Ghislaine Maxwell is a convicted sex predator. 1. 2, I don't have the docs, and none of the federal judges do. The Trump administration does. So go to them and solve your own problem, Trump administration, and don't try to use the federal courts to do it. And 3, he then had a short section, much like Judge Rosenberg in Florida, about, 6E, none of these things that you're telling us are the justifications work. I also found it interesting, Karen, that this is where we always have to disconnect on purpose between what Trump says for political fodder on the campaign trail or on the presidential trail about what his arguments are and what they can actually argue in a court of law. How many times have we heard over the last 6 weeks or more? Why are we still talking about the Epstein files? It's boring. There's nothing there. It's not very interesting. Why don't you ask me questions, dumb reporter, about the tariffs or about my peace deals that I'm doing or about something else I want you to focus on? Why do you keep focusing on the Epstein files? That's what he says publicly. Of course, we know it's rocked the administration because they're holding non-secret meetings in the middle of the night in the White House to try to figure out. Oh, I love this one. It's a communications. They're having a communications problem. It's like the old Cool Hand Luke movie. We're having a failure to communicate about Epstein. No, you're not. You're not releasing the files, and everybody sees that as a cover-up of epic proportion of depraved sexual criminal conduct. And we want to know if you're involved. You may say to us there's other people involved, but why is your name all over the Epstein files? And that's the problem he's having right now and convincing even his MAGA base about it. So while you got all that going on and all the distractions going on in the filings, Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice, tells Judge Engelmeyer and others, this is a case of great public importance. Everybody, history needs to know how the FBI and all. And I'm like, which is it? Is it it's boring, nothing to see here, or this is a case of great public importance? That's the only time I ever agree with Pam Bondi. It is a case of great public importance. And what it says about this administration, I'll leave it on this, Karen. The fact that Donald Trump is so low, has sunk so low, that he needs a convicted child sex offender to vouch for his character, says everything you need to know about this administration and how morally hollow it is.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. But I also agree with you that this is really a, if there's nothing in there that Donald Trump did and there's really nobody else, then release them. That's what I don't understand. Like, it makes it almost worse than it actually is, and that's why I think he's having such a problem.
Because there's stuff in there.
Yeah,
because there's stuff in there that you and
clearly
I
there must be. Yeah.
It may be. He may be blowing up in his mind. I mean, is there evidence that he was on the island and raped girls? I mean, at this point, who knows? It's hard to tell. But whatever's in there needs to come out because the public is demanding it, and the more they hide it, the more we want to see it. The more they try to blame the Biden administration, the more everyone's like, just release the damn files. So we'll continue to follow this case for all the reasons.
More survivors are coming forward too. Yeah. There are some survivors that have never spoken publicly before that are going to speak on September 3rd in Congress, and I think more people are coming forward, and so maybe the evidence will get out one way or another.
Yeah. And that's what I think that's what the judge hoped for too. Why don't we touch when we come back from our last ad break? We'll talk about this attack on same-sex marriage, and then a win for Justice and Jean Carroll on Legal AF. As I said, many ways to support us. Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Come over there, hit that subscribe button. We're going to hit 800,000 well before the summer is over at the rate we're going. We just passed 230 million views of our content over there. And I'm adding contributors about once a month, but really high-end crown jewel type contributors. I think you'll really enjoy. Legal AF Substack, we're continuing to build that, and we're doing more lives on Legal AF Substack. I did 2 today, one with Katie Fang, one with Adam Klasfeld. And we're going to be adding, I think Adam Parkmenko is going to be coming over with me. We're going to try to do, I don't know about one a day, but we're going to do a lot of lives on Legal AF Substack. If you want to join and pay, we appreciate it. If you can't or you don't want to, start out as a free member. Both places, Legal AF and the YouTube channel as well. And then, of course, we've got our Patreon, and we still do a lot of original content on Patreon, another way to support us and keep the lights on. And then we've got our sponsors. And here's our next break for our sponsors.
We live in an environment our biology was never designed for. EMFs, artificial light, seed oils, microplastics, endocrine disruptors, chronic stress. These modern assaults disrupt cellular signaling, negatively impacting gut health and accelerating aging. That's why I've been using Armra Colostrum. Armra Colostrum revives cellular signaling, bolstering our health from within to defend against everyday threats. Colostrum is nature's first whole food with over 400 bioactive nutrients that work at the cellular level to reactivate your body's innate capacity to regenerate and thrive. And since I started taking Armra, I've noticed a real difference. My gut feels stronger and less bloated. My energy and metabolism are better than ever. And even my skin looks more radiant. Plus, Armra helps strengthen immune health without just boosting it. It balances and strengthens your immune barriers across your mouth, sinuses, lungs, gut, and more. Ready to reclaim your health? We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 15% off your first order. Go to tryarmra.com/legalaf or enter legalaf to get 15% off your first order. That's tryarmra.com/legalaf. Armra Colostrum. It's pure, potent, natural, and clean. Not a supplement, but a bioactive whole food. I highly recommend giving it a try. This message is brought to you by our sponsor, Americans United for Separation of Church and State. You don't destroy 250 years of secular democracy without gutting the rule of law, shattering norms, and dropping a few $1 billion. The same people in groups that back Project 2025 are part of a larger shadow network that's relentlessly pushing to impose a Christian nationalist agenda on our laws and lives. The wall between church and state is the last safeguard blocking their agenda. We at Legal AF support their goal of forming a thriving democracy that functions and advances towards its promises, along with the ability to hold personal faith-based beliefs and practices without government interference. If you're a regular here at Legal AF, you know we're all about empowering ourselves and finding ways to create hope in these wild and terrifying times. One of the places I've found hope in is the organizations like Americans United for Separation of Church and State. AU is a quiet force fighting daily to preserve freedom without favor and equality without exception for every single American. They advocate for every individual's right to believe and live as you choose, so long as you don't harm others. Something we strive to uplift and do at Legal AF every day as we lift up voices and fight for everyone's rights at the intersection of law and politics. Whether you're passionate about gender-affirming healthcare, reproductive rights, LGBTQ+ rights, or supporting our public schools, church-state separation touches almost every constitutional freedom. If you're looking for a way to take action and support our fundamental freedoms, join Americans United for Separation of Church and State and their growing movement, because church-state separation protects us all. Learn more and join the fight at au.org/legalaf. That's au.org/legalaf.
Welcome back to Legal AF. Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and Michael Popok sitting at the intersection for breaking legal news about Trump presidency and so much more. And now we've got a MAGA attack on same-sex marriage. What is it about MAGA and people that lead alternate lifestyles? Why does it bother them so much? Why does it matter? Republicans used to be not in my bedroom, and now it's like all up in my bedroom and all up in my if you want to be nothing from a gender perspective, if you want to be transgender, if you want to be whatever makes you comfortable as a human being, and you want to marry somebody that you love and they happen to be of the same sex, why does it matter so much to MAGA? Why do they have to tear down and make people uncomfortable and force everybody into back alleys and consider suicide because they can't live the life that they were meant to lead? Why? Let's start with that. Why do you think that this, we're not in the 50s anymore, the 30s. This is 2025. Why does this bother them so much?
Honestly, this one is a head scratcher for me. I have no idea why anyone could be anti-gay or anti-same-sex marriage. I mean, as you said, just love who you want to love, be with who you want to be with. I mean, finding true love in this world is not everyone finds it, right? And if you find it and you have it, it shouldn't matter whether you're same sex or not. And this attack on same-sex marriage is really, really upsetting and really concerning, because just to remind everyone where we are, in 10 years ago now, it's been legal in the United States, Obergefell versus Hodges. And I love that you're having Robbie Kaplan on, who is responsible in some ways, right? She's the one who took this case all the way to the Supreme Court and won. And right after that, right after the Supreme Court declared that that same-sex marriage needs to be nationwide, in Kentucky, there was a clerk who refused to issue a marriage license to a gay couple, citing it was against her religion. So I guess to answer your question, why is that? I guess that's why, right? I think it's a religious belief. And she has now asked the Supreme Court, she's back, the same clerk. She is back and asking the Supreme Court to overturn the Obergefell is really where we are. And normally you would think, well, that's not going to happen. And why would it happen? And, will they take the case? And, she filed a writ, and the two individuals who she denied the license for did not file a response, just kind of left it, hoping that the Supreme Court would just deny certiorari. And you can one justice can call for a response from the other party. So it's briefed prior to them knowing whether they want to grant cert or not. And of course, one justice asked for a response, because they don't typically grant reviews without hearing from both sides. And again, any justice can. And so they asked for it, and we'll see. We'll see if they do. You need four votes, as you know, Popok, to grant cert or to hear a case officially, and you need 5 to overturn a case. And so I don't know that they would grant cert if they didn't feel confident that they had the 5 to overturn it. There were dissenters in Obergefell, and so, it was Roberts and Thomas and Alito dissented. So do they have a 4th and then a 5th? Let's see what they have. But this one scares me a little bit.
It's going to be awkward. Gorsuch presided over a gay marriage at some point in his career. That seems to be the one area that he is more progressive, is in the gay marriage world. I mean, do they have the numbers to do it in the MAGA right of the Supreme Court? Sure. Have they been working overtime to rip a super precedent off the shelves, as part of their MAGA checklist, like Roe versus Wade and cases related to Administrative Procedures Act and the Chevron decision and I could name about a dozen different doctrines that have fallen by the wayside under the Roberts Court? Yes. Do they have the balls to go after same-sex marriage? It's probably a terrible phrase, to go after same-sex marriage and have that be on their obituaries? I'm not sure about that, but we will know soon enough. I could definitely make an argument where they would never take that case, and I could certainly make an argument where they'll definitely take that case. That's the problem with the U.S. Supreme Court when it comes to things about religion or sexual autonomy or your ability to control things about your body or reproductive rights. They're just they're not consistent on everything, and we're going to have to see. It's going to come down to Amy Coney Barrett and maybe Gorsuch on this issue, or maybe Roberts. I want to hear from Robbie Kaplan tomorrow about what she thinks. She had a case that led into Obergefell on a related matter, sort of set the framework for same-sex marriage. And I want to hear from her as well. So it's just something we wanted to put on everybody's radar. It's not an emergency appeal that's going to happen in August, September. This is going to be a first new term of the United States Supreme Court in October, but we will follow it closely. But again, that's why I started with Why must they deny people the right to feel comfortable in their bodies and with whom they love? I just don't understand it. It doesn't bother me one bit what goes, as long as it's not illegal, what goes on in my next door neighbor's house, or how their children are being raised, or who they love. I mean, listen, you have children. I have a daughter. Everybody knows I adore Francesca. I couldn't love any person other than my wife more than my daughter. But if my daughter came home one day and was adult and told me that she loved somebody of the same sex, I would focus on the love part and not on the same sex part in accepting her. But that's me and our audience, I think, by and large. But that's not the adversary. So remember that at the time of the voting, because you're in for a penny, you're in for as somebody once said, you're in for a Deutschmark. I mean, you're in, this party is so depraved that people say, I'm a single issue Republican. You can't be. That's a cop-out, and that's a lie. What was your single issue? Transgender sports. Okay. Or a single issue is this, that, and the other thing. That's your party, okay? If you're an independent, you voted for the party, that's your party. And if you don't like what's going on, then that shouldn't be your party, and you should be voting for the Democrats. Now, I know the Democrats are getting, the low polling numbers, but frankly, they're a party out of power. We can do letters, we can do shadow hearings, we can drive people crazy during confirmation hearings, we can do filibusters now and again. But there's a limit to what a party out of power can do. If you want to see real change, if you want to see checks and balance, if you want to see abuse of power being limited and impeachment hearings being opened up and things being done that help the American people, then vote for the Democrats and get them back into power and have them run the House and the Senate. It's really that simple. There's a lot of hand-wringing we can do. Lord knows Democrats are known for hand-wringing. But at the end of the day, you have to, there's this call to action that you can do. Carol, you want to talk about Jean Carroll?
Yeah, just before we leave same-sex marriage, this is just an issue that I really haunts me, that this could happen. I want to live in a world where people don't have to come out as gay. They don't have to say I'm gay. Like you don't go to your parents and say, you know what, I have something I need to tell you. I'm straight. You know what I mean? I want this, we need to move so far in the other direction that this isn't even a question, that you just love who you love, right? Your lifestyle is your lifestyle, and you are who you are, and who you're meant to be, and you're with who you're meant to be with. And this is just an issue that we all have to make sure we've finally, I can't believe it took until 2015 for same-sex marriage to be legal, but we've already lost abortion. We cannot lose this. And this is something, just what you were saying, Popok, about what we have to do and what is at stake and what is important. This is just next level, and we have to get it back, because this is just outrageous.
You and I all have friends, 1 degree separation, of people who are same-sex marriages, successful, some not successful. I think their divorce rate is actually a little bit lower than heterosexual, but they have the right to be in that marriage. And I know plenty of couples, same-sex couples, that have adopted children or have had children, and also loving. Look, there's a love and abuse in the full spectrum. So it's not like oh well, let them do it because they do it better. No, everybody should have their shot at whatever love in life that they want to have, and that's the choice. That's why it just infuriates me too about same-sex or single issue Republicans or single issue independents. How can you possibly do that? What a cop-out! What a cheat! Well, somebody that's not a cheater and not a cop-out and has gotten justice for herself is Jean Carroll. And we've got, some people might be thinking, did we already do this? Yeah, because there were 2 judgments. One for a 9-person jury, civil jury, that found that she was sexually abused by Donald Trump. That's why we get to call him a sexual abuser. Because 9-0, a jury found on a preponderance of evidence that he sexually abused, or as the judge called it, technically raped, E. Jean Carroll in a dressing room at the Bergdorf Goodman department store, diagonal from and across the street from Trump Tower, back in the 90s. And that jury awarded her $5.5 million in total. He then defamed. Then there was a second trial when he defamed her again, and that trial went second. And that trial had to do when he was president, and he testified, and the jury hated him, second jury, and they awarded her $83.5 million. Good job, Alina Habba and the rest. And it's been up on appeal ever since. It's been kicking around with different appeals. Donald Trump's tried to argue that he's entitled to what's called Westfall immunity because he was an employee of the federal government when he made the statements that defamed her. She's ugly. I would never sleep with her. Look at her. She's not my type. She's trying to shake me down. She's a liar. All that stuff. Jury hated him.
And mistook her for Marla Maples, right? During a deposition.
Yeah, that's why
she's not my type. But he thought she was Marla Maples in the deposition.
And I asked E. Jean Carroll I interviewed E. Jean Carroll about 3 weeks ago, and I asked her. I said, E. Jean, is that what was that moment like when Robbie Kaplan, your lawyer, ran the video of the deposition in which, with Alina Habba, his nurse sitting next to him, she handed him your lawyer handed him the photo when he denied having ever met you, and it was you, John Johnson, who was a ABC News reporter, who was her husband at the time, and Ivana and Donald Trump, all like laughing in a photo with fur coats, very, very 1980s New York. And they handed it, and the whole point of that cross was to disprove that Donald Trump had never met her. Robbie didn't know what was going to happen next. Neither did the jury, which was, let me see that photo. Well, okay, so that's a photo of me and Marla Maples. And so Donald Trump's so demented that he thought his two wives were in the photo at different times, because Ivana was in the photo. Me and Marla Maples, and Robbie says, "Stop! I'm sorry. You're pointing to this person here as being Marla Maples, the person you married?" "Yes, that's me and Marla." And then you hear Habba in the video recording say, "That's Carroll. That's E. Jean Carroll." And he looks at it. Oh, it's a fuzzy picture. We've all seen the photo. It's clear. It's a very clear photo. Point being, he had just said, "Not my type," and yet he confused her for the woman he married. I asked E. Jean, how'd that go over in the trial? He says that there were two moments that won the trial for me. That, and when Donald Trump walked out during Robbie Kaplan's closing argument, literally got up in front of the jury, turned and walked out the door. She said that's when we knew that that the jury was with us. When he was both misogynist and insulting about Robbie and dismissive of E. Jean Carroll, it only reinforced the narrative they have been making in the courtroom the whole time. So first 5.5 and then an 83.5, both go up on appeal. They end up at the same panel about immunity, about whether he had immunity. And they were all like, you waived it. If you had it, you waived it. You never raised it, which is an Alina Habba problem, by the way. That's malpractice for having not raised it. And so now the same panel affirmed both now her judgments. Last stop is the Supreme Court. So let me ask you, do you think the Supreme Court gets involved with these civil cases about rape or sexual abuse, technical rape in New York, and about punitive damages? Or do they, nah, we're not touching that one? What do you think happens?
If the parties were anyone else other than Donald Trump on one side of the V and E. Jean Carroll, they wouldn't touch this with a 20-foot pole. But your guess is as good as mine when it comes to them with Donald Trump. I mean, they're like his own small claims court, or whatever you want to call it. Like, they just, every case he has, he goes to them. It doesn't matter what it is, and they seem to take it. They're like, they're his advisors.
They shouldn't take it. They shouldn't take it.
Of course they shouldn't take it, yeah.
It's beneath them to take the case. When
will she get the money, though? When will she physically get paid?
When all appeals are exhausted, which would be he tries an appeal at the United States Supreme Court, and it either happens or it doesn't.
Did he have to post a bond, though, with the money?
He's got two bonds. He's got a cash bond for $5.5 that's been sitting, running with interest. It's now over $100 million. It's over $100 million. Jean Carroll told us during the interview she is donating almost all of it out. I'm like, don't do that, E.G. Enjoy some of it. But she wants to set up foundations. The one she said, the ones that'll drive Donald Trump crazy are the foundations that she's going to set up with his cash, which we loved. You know, so many things I love about her. But the 5.5 is cash bond. The 83.5. Remember, he had a problem getting a surety company to post the bond. He finally found a surety company. There's a combination of sureties that are involved to post it. And if he tries the appeal and they reject it, within 30 days, he has to pay it, or she goes to the bonding company or the court clerk and gets paid. If they accept the appeal, she's got to wait, and she's then got to win. So we'll keep a close eye on it. But if they don't bother taking it, like with a one-line order, you know, which you could see here, then 30 days after that one-line order, but we got to get the appeal first. So he's got 30 days from now. So it'll be a September event when he files the appeal. Sometime 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 months later, we'll know what they do. In the meantime, it runs with interest. And if he fails at the Supreme Court one way or the other, then she will get her money sometime in 2026.
Speaking of bonds and money owed, what's going on with the New York State civil fraud case and that bond that he had to put up? And
only bad things. I mean, Donald Trump, I won't say he's done anything to slow it down. The First Department Appellate Division has been sitting on a $450 million civil fraud judgment against Donald Trump for going on 10 months now. I do practice in the First Department. That's an exceedingly long time. I don't know if they're scared, if they're worried, what their timing issue is. This is not a big deal. But what that has allowed is mischief. Because of the huge gap, Donald Trump has been able now to open up criminal investigations against Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, for having gone after him in the civil fraud case, which is ridiculous. And of course, they put a sock puppet crash dummy MAGA Northern District of New York fake U.S. attorney to go after her, along with Ed Martin in a mortgage fraud, no less. So just this time gap has allowed Donald Trump to change the narrative and try to go after people like Letitia James. And I blame the First Department. You know, they're going to cut, as you and I talked about it, they're going to cut that judgment probably in half, because the First Department cuts every judgment in half. You just have to get through the meat grinder of the First Department. When you get a judgment in New York, in Manhattan, you don't celebrate that amount of money, trust me, if you're a plaintiff's lawyer, because you got to go through an appeal, and they're going to whack you. So it's going to come down. Is it going to come down to zero? I doubt it. Is it going to come down a couple $100 million? It may. And that money goes to New York State. But look at this time gap that's allowed Donald Trump not only to get elected, but also to sick the Department of Justice on his political enemy, who successfully brought that case in Letitia James of the New York Attorney General's office.
Yeah, interesting.
Right. So we'll continue to talk about those things. But we got a happy birthday celebration for KFA. She's meeting her husband for some dinner at an undisclosed location right after the show. We're going to end it right now. I really appreciate her being here and stretching it out for this amount of time. You know how to support us all. Hit the subscribe buttons, Midas Touch, Legal AF, and all of that. Come right back here Saturday for our show with Ben Meiselas, and I got some great interviews about newsmakers, including Robbie Kaplan, Jean Carroll's lawyer, and others on the Legal AF YouTube channel. So until our next podcast, come over and listen to us on audio. We need some audio love. This is Legal AF, and the shout out to the Midas Mighty and the Legal AFers.